Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include new details about Diablo Immortal, a part of Activision Blizzard unionizing despite resistance, an alleged leak about Diablo 4, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the description below. But right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. Now, before we move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, MU Origin 3, the newest sequel in the classic MU IP of MMORPGs that have been around for over 20 years. In this latest installment, you got 3 classic class archetypes to choose from, either the swordsman, the archer, or the mage, and you can fully customize your character's appearance. You'll gain special equipment shimmering effects by enhancing, boosting, and embedding your weapons, your armor, and your wings with various upgrades, allowing you to even further customize your appearance. New to MU Origin 3, we break away from that traditional isometric angle, and you can now fully explore the game's open world in 3 dimensions, meaning you can dive deep into oceans and even sprout wings and fly through the air. There's over 5 million square meters of fantasy world to discover, rendered in Unreal Engine 4, ranging from the depths of the mysterious underwater city of Atlantis, all the way up to the towering mountains of the glacial peaks. The graphics they're able to achieve on mobile are just spectacular. You can engage in real-time PvP battles against other players in competitive 3v3 arenas, and there's even server versus server wars, in which you can coordinate with allies to capture enemy cities. You can mix and match different skill combinations to figure out different synergies in the game's fast-paced combat, and you can change things up depending on the activity, like PvP, PvE, or guild versus guild. So, discover the mystical world of MU on Transcendent Wings by clicking the link in the description below. In our quick first story, the breakout hit survival game V Rising has passed 1 million sales in its first week of early access release. In V Rising, you play as a vampire that needs to feed on blood, and you build up a castle while exploring an open world. You gather resources, you craft gear, and you defeat bosses to unlock new abilities and technologies. The isometric view gives it a distinct Diablo-like vibe, but the gameplay is very different. Still, I'm very interested in this title, and I know a number of you folks have played it, so sound off in the comments with your thoughts. Do you recommend V Rising? On to some Activision Blizzard news. There have been some important developments this week with respect to the company and its employees. First off, the US National Labor Relations Board, or the NLRB for short, has found that Activision Blizzard illegally threatened its staff and enforced a social media policy that infringes on their rights. Specifically, the allegation is that the company threatened employees that they couldn't discuss wages, hours, or working conditions. Activision Blizzard has the opportunity to settle the case through an agreement with the NLRB. If they don't, then the NLRB will escalate the matter, which can lead to higher courts. However, an Activision Blizzard spokesperson said, quote, "These allegations are false. Employees may and do talk freely about these workplace issues without retaliation, and our social media policy expressly incorporates employees' labor rights." Now, these allegations were first brought to light in September, and the NLRB has been investigating for months before now determining that the allegations have merit. It should be noted, though, that being held in violation of labor law does not necessarily mean that Activision Blizzard is guilty of criminal behavior. The NLRB does not have the authority to impose any fines or real punishments. They can require that a company reverse its policies or reverse punishments, reinstate fired workers, provide back pay, or otherwise fix whatever they're being accused of. The NLRB can also then choose to take the case to federal court. In the meantime, we just have to wait and see if Activision Blizzard settles or fights this. Then shortly after this happened, one section of one studio within one branch of Activision Blizzard successfully unionized this week. After a 19-3 vote, Activision sub-studio Raven Software's Quality Assurance Department has formed the first ever union at a major video game developer in North America. And while this is only 28 people within a company of about 10,000 employees, this is nonetheless massive for the industry. A few months ago, the 13-employee indie studio Vodio Games became the first to unionize in North America. And now, with the first union within a AAA studio formed, this is the first real foothold that has ever formed, and it can possibly paved the way for more to come. Unionization in the industry has been a topic for years, but no real momentum was built up until these past several months. Now, Activision Blizzard tried to stop the union from forming. A week before the vote started, Activision Blizzard asked the NLRB to stop the vote. Obviously, they were denied. The company also refused to voluntarily recognize the union, which would have skipped the vote altogether. They tried to convince the NLRB that all employees at Raven Software should vote, roughly 350 people, not just the QA department. And coincidentally, after the intent to unionize was put forth, Activision Blizzard then enacted a plan that had allegedly been in the works for months. They began disassembling QA teams and instead inserting QA personnel as embedded members of other teams. After the vote passed, an Activision Blizzard spokesperson said, quote, "We respect and believe in the right of all employees to decide whether or not to support or vote for a union. We believe that an important decision that will impact the entire Raven Software studio of roughly 350 people should not be made by 19 Raven employees." Activision Blizzard has until May 31st to file an objection to the union before it is certified. Then later in the week, Xbox boss Phil Spencer, who will be the boss of Activision Blizzard once the Microsoft acquisition of the company finalizes, said, quote, "Once the deal closes, we would absolutely support an employees organization that's in place. We think it is a right of employees and something that can be a part of a relationship between a company and people who work at the company." Now, legally, Microsoft would have to support the union, of course, but talking about how a union can be a part of the relationship between a company and its employees is certainly a more positive statement than the current Activision Blizzard leadership that has basically been saying that a union would be detrimental to the relationship between the company and its employees, and actively harmful to their ability to make games. And that takes us to Diablo news, starting with Diablo Immortal. We got this week the official release time for Diablo Immortal. On June 2nd, the game will release on Android, iOS, and PC beta at 1 p.m. EDT, 7 p.m. CEST. The Southeast Asian launch of the game is going to happen on June 22nd PDT, and they're going to be getting dedicated regional servers. We also found out that the game will not be releasing in Belgium or the Netherlands, two countries that have strict rules about microtransactions in video games, specifically with regards to gambling and loot boxes. And Blizzard seems to have confirmed that this is basically the reason that the game is unavailable in those countries. A support ticket response from a Blizzard support game master said, quote, "Unfortunately, players in the Netherlands and Belgium will not be able to install Diablo Immortal due to the country's gambling restrictions. The loot boxes in the game are against the law in your country. It would be illegal for you to download the game in another country like France. If you manage to run the game, I cannot guarantee that you will not be banned for it. What I can say is that in similar situations in the past, where RNG loot boxes were against the law in certain countries, we did not ban any players for it, but I cannot give you a guarantee that you will not be banned." I do find this response odd. First, because Diablo Immortal does not have loot boxes in the traditional sense, and calling what they do have loot boxes is misleading. And second, I'm surprised that this statement on such a serious subject comes first from a game master and not from Blizzard PR with a carefully crafted message. A representative had given a vague reason to Dutch outlet Tweakers that poorly translates to "due to the operating conditions for games in those countries," and that's likely as specific an answer as Blizzard wanted to give. What we do know for sure though is that Belgian and Dutch players are out of luck unless they want to risk VPNs. Otherwise, pre-downloads for Immortal began on PC this week, and the game weighs in at a hefty 27 gigs. On mobile it's only about half, 13 gigs, so the PC version likely has access to ultra high resolution textures and who knows what else. But 13 is still big for a phone game, and that's because Diablo Immortal is not just a phone game, it's a game. You can argue there's more game in Diablo Immortal than there is in Diablo 3. In an interview with the Washington Post, game director Wyatt Cheng said Immortal is the most ambitious Diablo project yet. He added, quote, "The team and effort and resources are just as large for Immortal as they've been for Diablo 3 and Diablo 4. Yeah, a mobile game that's been in development for over 5 years? That's a full AAA game level of effort." Cheng said, quote, "I do believe Diablo Immortal is gonna change a lot of people's minds on what they think of as a mobile game. That was one of our goals since the beginning. Let's elevate the standards for what people can expect from a mobile game." It definitely achieved that for me. Before Diablo Immortal, I just thought of mobile games as the equivalent of those free browser games you'd play on Miniclip or Congregate. Now, along with the release window for the different regions, we also got the server lists for each region. When you create a character, it'll be locked to a specific server in a specific region, and there's roughly 100 servers across the different regions. With over 30 million players pre-registered for Immortal, that would mean an average of 300,000 players per server. And surely there won't be a perfectly even distribution, so some are going to get slammed a lot harder than that. So come launch day, will the servers be up to task? We'll find out. Now, gotta make an important PSA here. Diablo Immortal has crossplay between PC and mobile, meaning you could be playing on PC and then you pop on mobile and keep playing with your same character over there. However, in order to ensure that your PC and mobile accounts are synced, you need to connect your mobile account to your Battle.net account. When you're on mobile, you can play on a guest account. You don't need to be logged into a Battle.net account. So you can be playing on mobile, get a character up to level 20, then you hop onto your PC, and you have to play on Battle.net on PC. And once you boot up, the game's going to ask you, there's going to be a prompt, have you played on mobile? And if for whatever deranged reason you'd click on no, you're going to start then with a fresh account on Battle.net. So you're going to start up a fresh character, and now you're going to have a character on PC and a character on mobile, and you will not be able to move one to the other anymore. You're not going to be able to merge those two accounts, and if you want to get crossplay working, you're then going to have to contact Blizzard support, and it's going to be a giant nightmare. So just don't do that. Connect your Battle.net account on mobile if you want to crossplay. There'll be a simple option to do it in the game on mobile. Then if you want to play with a controller, the devs released a whole list of supported controllers for both PC and mobile, both wired and Bluetooth. And while the PC launch is technically a beta launch, there'll be no progress wipes, so you can treat it like it's a real launch. Just be aware that they may make further improvements to the PC experience. Now, also this week we had a meeting between the devs and some content creators in which more details were shared about Immortal. First, we learned that the game is getting an armory feature like Diablo 3's, in which you can save your build loadout, skills, and gear. This is great because your PvP build can very possibly be different from your PvE build, and being able to quickly swap is a huge quality of life upgrade. Not having to go into your stash, swap out your gear, change your skills, being able to do that instead at the click of a button, great quality of life. Your Paragon points can be freely respec'd once per week, and a new Paragon tree was also revealed, the Mastermind tree, which revolves around bonuses from party play. For instance, you can get crit chance bonuses for having different classes in your party, therefore promoting class diversity. We also learned that we'll have the ability to fully customize our characters' faces, as opposed to just picking from a few presets. We learned that sets will now have 2, 4, and 6-piece bonuses, similar to Diablo 3, but just without the ridiculous numbers. We learned about a couple features that warbands are getting, although I should probably explain what warbands are first. So they're not clans. Clans are a thing that exists. They can have up to 100 members. A warband is intended to be your group of friends that you play with regularly. They can have up to 8 members in a warband. And first off, we learned that warbands are getting a camp of some kind. This might be something similar to player housing. It's a little unclear on what the details there are. It might operate like in Path of Exile, where you go to your hideout and it's just a place that you can meet up with your party. We also learned that there's this feature where you will be getting bonus drops that will automatically go to your warband stash. And these drops can be off-class items, because normally whatever drops for you is for your class. But you're not going to be picking these up. They're going to automatically go. They're extra drops that go into that stash, and then people in your warband can access the warband stash and borrow items from there. So if you and I are in the same warband, you can borrow my item from there, and then if I leave the warband though, that item disappears. We also learned a bit more about the main villain of Diablo Immortal, who's called Skarn, Lord of Damnation. In the past, I've jokingly called him Michael Skarn a couple times. I thought it was an obvious joke. It's a reference to The Office. I figured maybe not everyone would get the reference, but that it'd still at least understand that there's not a Diablo villain called Michael Skarn. But a few people thought that was his actual name, so it is not. He is not Michael Skarn, he is Skarn, Lord of Damnation. He's a demon, and he's not just a normal demon, he's smart, he's calculating, and he has a unique interest in humanity and their sin. He doesn't want to destroy humanity, he wants to fix us. Whatever that means for a demon. Oh, also, energy drink company G Fuel has unveiled a lineup of Diablo Immortal themed health potions with special tumblers for each class in the game. They'll obviously be limited edition. Lastly, in Diablo 4 news, the upcoming Diablo book, Diablo Tales from the Heraldric Library, has been updated on Amazon with a new cover, which looks infinitely more cool than the previous placeholder. We also got a list of authors now, and they all have a pedigree in fantasy fiction writing. The release date seems to have slightly changed from October 22nd to October 18th, and as a reminder, in the past, we've seen Diablo books like these release 5 months ahead of a major Diablo release. This happened with Diablo 3, this happened with Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls, so 5 months from late October takes us to late March 2022. Fingers crossed. We also saw this week an alleged leak that stated that Diablo 4 would have a presence at the upcoming Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase on June 12th, and that we'd get a Diablo 4 release date there. Now, unfortunately, I dug around, I could not find anything to substantiate the legitimacy of this leak. Anyone could just type up anything in Notepad and take a screenshot and release that into the wild, and a lot of what's in this leak can be pretty easily explained away as someone who just keeps up to date with the industry and is putting in his best guesses. Now, yes, we can pick apart and dissect this list, point out things that don't make sense, but a lot of it can be explained away, rationalized. There's so few details that everything is so vague, you can come up with any number of excuses like, why would Blizzard reveal the release date of Diablo 4 before the release date of Overwatch 2? Overwatch 2 is already in public beta. So of course it's going to release first, so why wouldn't they give the release date first? Well, you can explain away this is not a full list, this is a partial list. However, to give the benefit of the doubt, we know that there's no E3 this year. That got cancelled. Last year, Blizzard announced the release date of Diablo 2 Resurrected as part of Microsoft's Xbox and Bethesda showcase at E3 2021 on June 13th. So June 13th, release date was revealed for D2R. September, the game released, just a few months later. So if Blizzard was planning to announce something at E3 this year, before E3 got cancelled, it makes sense for Blizzard to move it to this event instead. We also know that Blizzard is not having a BlizzCon this year, so they have no other convention to save any major announcements for. We also know that the end of June marks the end of this quarter. We were expecting the next Diablo 4 quarterly update by the end of June. They've so far been doing it like clockwork. It's not unreasonable for that to be bumped up a couple of weeks for this event. The only time they broke their pattern previously was for BlizzCon, where BlizzCon replaced the quarterly update for that quarter. So personally, I would not be surprised if Diablo 4, just coincidentally, not because of the leak, has a presence at this event. I am not, however, expecting a release date because Blizzard does not reveal release dates a year in advance now. They only do it a few months, and I don't think there's any way that we're getting D4 in a few months. Still though, if they're gonna have a presence at this event for Diablo, it's to have something exciting to reveal for Diablo, like a 5th class. Like with BlizzCon, they revealed the 4th class. Now my best guess for a D4 release date is still 2023. As a reminder, company-wide testing for D4 began recently, and if we go back and look at Diablo 3, that game released roughly 1 year after company-wide testing had begun. Based on D3's timeline, external beta testing for D4 could begin as early as September of this year, with a full release happening by around this time next year. But we'll have to wait and see, because that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to have checked out our last video in which we discussed some recent new insights we got into Diablo 3's development. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you saw on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon, and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more gaming content.